Hello there guys, you're listening to Ebird Online and I'm back with another review. And guys, I'm spoiling you yet again due to popular demand. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Elizabeth and Andrei. I decided not to cover this couple because I think in the first couple of episodes it seemed to me like they were overacting, and I thought, here we go, these guys just want to check. But as the seasons progressed it has got definitely more interesting, so here goes. So this is 90 Day Fiance Happily Ever After, Season 5 Episode 9, Burnt Bridges and Bitter Truths. If you've yet to do so, please click that big red subscribe button. And also, if you like the video, don't forget to press the like. It makes a massive difference to how YouTube promotes my video. So if you like it, don't forget to do that. And without further ado, I give you Elizabeth and Andrei. So Elizabeth and Andrei have been married for a couple of years, and they've travelled to Moldova with their young toddler Eleanor to have a second wedding because Andrei's family were unable to attend the first wedding. And so this is supposed to be the big fancy wedding that Elizabeth always dreamed of. But Elizabeth is the eternal doormat, and some might say this is absolutely perfect for Andrei because he never misses an opportunity to walk all over her. And the wedding has caused a bit of contention with Elizabeth's family because Andrei planned the date and told all of his family and then just announced it to Elizabeth's family with 1 month's notice. Yep, he's from Moldova, they all live in Tampa, Florida. And so unfortunately, the majority of Elizabeth's large family are unable to attend. And Elizabeth's sisters are of the opinion that Andrei did this whole thing on purpose with such short notice, knowing they'd be unable to come. But luckily for him, her dad's coming because his checkbook is paying for everything. And this is an important point, I think, because Andrei is not able to pay for his own wedding. And he basically forced Elizabeth to ask her dad to pay for the second wedding. Lock, stock and barrel. So just to give you guys a bit of backdrop, Andrei has been super sneaky because he and Elizabeth have been in Moldova a couple of weeks, and in order to get married at the church that he's chosen, Elizabeth has to be baptised in his religion, which is Moldovan Orthodox. And this came as a great surprise for Elizabeth, and she tells us she's only doing it because she feels she has no choice. Elizabeth, you don't just change religion because you have no choice. And guys, this is so weird. Elizabeth said 1, she didn't want to do it. 2, she didn't want her parents to know as they would be very unhappy. 3, she doesn't know anything about this religion. 4, she didn't understand at all the ceremony. And 5, she said the roles were quite concerning as it seems that women were not on the same level as men in this religion. Oh Elizabeth, you've no need to worry as it will be a cold day in hell when Andrei treats you as an equal. And so they have this ceremony and the whole thing was in Moldovan, so Elizabeth really didn't know what she was doing or saying. And after the ceremony, Andrei's cock-a-hoop, and Andrei said he's so happy because finally Elizabeth's accepting his religion. Oh Andrei, you know good and well that going to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than standing in a stable makes you a horse. I very much doubt the Moldovan Orthodox Church supports lying, trickery and deception as an essential part of their recruitment process. And so the couple go for a celebratory meal afterwards with 2 of Andrei's friends. And with impeccable timing, Elizabeth decides to ask Andrei a few questions about her new religion. And she said, are women and men equal in this religion? And one of Andrei's friends helpfully lets her know that in this religion, the man is the brain and the woman is the neck. In that case, Elizabeth, the Ebird suggests that you hold your breath for about 20 minutes or so. And guys, throughout all this, Andrei's pretending to be willfully ignorant, and he tells producers, Elizabeth has accepted my religion. I'm going to personally contact the Moldovan Orthodox Church and find out if they've even accepted you, Andrei. I have both reasonable and valid doubts. And Andrei knows good and well if he'd given Elizabeth any choice whatsoever, she would not have been changing religions. And guys, to me this is just very typical of Andrei's behaviour. He just rides roughshod over whatever Elizabeth wants on a very regular basis. He has absolutely no concern for what she wants. He just creates a narrative for whatever his own wants and desires actually are. And so the following day they go to pick up Chuck and Charlie, her dad and brother, at the airport, and they welcome them to Moldova. And it's fair to say they're underwhelmed. Obviously these guys have just come from Tampa, Florida, and it was lovely sunshine when they left. And they arrive in Moldova to the backdrop of 1960s communist buildings, a miserable Andrei and Elizabeth, and lost luggage. What? Lost luggage? That's quite strange because I didn't even know that Delta flew to Moldova. But that's the most likely scenario. It was something to do with Delta. When anyone loses their baggage, Delta is quite often the offending airline. But who knows, maybe they didn't just lose the luggage, maybe it's going to recycling. Maybe, Chuck, your clothes are going to the needy. Although I must concede, anyone that needs a 52-inch waist isn't that needy. So they drive over to Andrei's family home so they can meet all of the family, and they're going to have a big slap-up meal. But both Chuck and Charlie have ulterior motives for this meal, and in fact for this whole trip. And they say to producers, "We can't wait to meet Andrei's family because we want to try and find out as much as we can about his background. And we want to find out why he left Moldova, why he went to Ireland, and how he ended up in the US. I'd like to know, Charlie and Chuck, why didn't you ask any of these questions before he married your daughter? Oh look, the horse has bolted. Quick, lock the stable door." What a pair of clowns. And during the meal, which they were really happy with because they put on a massive spread and it was a very effusive welcome, they kept on and on asking questions about Andrei. Was he really a cop? Yes. Why did you leave then? Why would you leave a great job? Was he really a bouncer in Ireland? Yes, he was. How did he meet our daughter? And the questions flowed thick and fast. And I couldn't help but notice that Elizabeth was kind of going along with it a little bit. And I think it did come off as a little bit pushy and a little bit rude. But Chuck and Charlie don't just leave it there. So currently Andrei is a stay-at-home dad and Elizabeth goes out to work. And Chuck asks earnestly, "Is this how you do it in Moldova? Do the men stay at home and the women go to work?" Obviously they don't. He knows very well this isn't the case. And of course everybody says no. And he says, well, why doesn't Andrei work? And according to Andrei, he and Elizabeth have organised this and Elizabeth was happy about it until her family got involved. And this is a common theme running through their relationship. Elizabeth's family is extremely tight-knit. And she's always in between Andrei and the whole of the rest of her family. And to say that they don't like him would be quite the understatement. And so the following day, fresh off the back of bad feeling, they go for a big meal in a restaurant with all of Andrei's friends. And again, Chuck and Charlie conspire and plan to find out more about Andrei. And so they ask all of his friends, how do you know him? How long have you known him? What was he like when he was a child? And her brother said, was he a troublemaker? And it was quite amusing because one of his friends said, yeah, we were all troublemakers. And every time they get a bit of a negative about Andrei, her dad and brother look at each other as if to say, see what we mean? He's dodgy. And the interrogation continues. Chuck asks, why did he go to Ireland? As if there was going to be some big conspiracy. But it seems there was something a little fishy because his friend said, oh, I can't remember. Really? You're living in Ireland? You call your friend who lives in Moldova and you say, yeah, come over to Ireland, but you can't remember why he wanted to leave. Interesting. Very interesting. And they centre in on this. They really want to know why he left Moldova for Ireland. Chuck, Charlie, considering that you are now sitting in Moldova and you've already expressed your dismay at how dank and drab it looks and the fact that Amazon Prime doesn't deliver, it's quite a bizarre question to ask. You cannot say that you consider somewhere virtually third world and then also at the same time question why somebody would want to leave. It's beyond idiotic and you know it. And Andrei's temper, which usually runs at about 90 degrees anyway, boils over. And he says, Elizabeth, your family are hounding me. Why do they want to know all this? They're being nosy. It's none of their effing business. And he started effing and blinding. But these two guys don't care. They're just going on and on, asking, do you think he wanted to marry our daughter for a green card? And Charlie says, I think he was in Ireland and he just wanted to get to America in any way he could. Yeah, right, Charlie, that well-worn path. Moldova, Ireland, America, that's how most people come. But as far as I'm concerned, all of this is a day late and $1 short. They're married and they have a child. And they're both the same religion. And I honestly think these guys are a pair of fools if they think they can find out anything from his friends. They're basically acting as if Ireland is some sort of backwater slum. And Andrei was actually trying to say, when we first met, we were going to stay in Ireland, we were going to live in Dublin. And guys, I've been to Dublin many, many times. It's absolutely beautiful. And there are loads of opportunities there. So he didn't necessarily need to come to America. But like I said, Andrei's temper had finally boiled over and he wants to fight Charlie. And incidentally, just for those of you who want to know, my money's on Andrei. And they square up to each other. Just have an embrace. And whilst they're hugging onto each other, Andrei's saying, I'll F you up. And Charlie's saying, come on then, do it. Bore off both of you. Neither one of these guys want to fight. They both just want to run their mouths. And they manage to get pulled apart and they sit back down. And then one of Andrei's friends said, well, come on guys, you are provoking him. And he said to production, they did ask me the same question like 10 times. And Charlie said to Andrei, "We're just trying to learn more about you, dude." "No, you're not, Charlie. You're just trying to absolutely trip him up and to somehow prove to Elizabeth that he's not all that he says he is. Elizabeth knows what you are, a big, throbbing hunk of testosterone with very little use." And what was Elizabeth doing during all this bickering? Well, she wasn't exactly calming things down. She said to Andrei, "What, so now you're going to try and fight my dad?" Like I said earlier, no fight's going to occur tonight. And Andrei said if they don't like it, tell them to pack their suitcases. Well, it should be a very, very quick job because Delta still has the suitcases. All they'll need to do is go and pick them up when they finally find them. But all of this was quite performative from Andrei because he was saying to Elizabeth, "Tell them to pack their suitcases. They're sitting here. You're speaking in English. They can hear you say, 'Pack your suitcases.'" But Elizabeth, as usual, is in the middle and she's had enough. She said, "Let's go, that's it, I'm leaving." And her and Andrei storm out of the restaurant. Chuck said, "This is typical. Andrei's absolutely classless." "Chuck, so are you." And Elizabeth said to Andrei, "Your behaviour is absolutely outrageous." And fair enough, he was a bit drunk and he was extremely belligerent, but the other two guys were absolutely winding him up and they were utterly relentless in all their questions. So Elizabeth and Andrei stand outside and Andrei decides to put on his diplomatic hat. His friends come outside and he says, "I want you to leave as well. I don't want Chuck and Charlie to stay with you guys." And it seems his diplomatic hat doesn't quite fit because his friends tell him to jog on. And Raghu said, "We'll leave soon, but we need to ensure these guys are okay." And then Andrei says, "You're on their side." And Raghu says, "No, we're not. We need to try and calm the situation down." And Elizabeth said to Andrei, "I simply can't defend your behaviour." And Andrei said everything was fine until they started asking their bloody questions. Yeah, Andrei, and until you drank your own body weight in vodka." And back inside the restaurant, Chuck's got his diplomacy hat on as well. And he has a very sneaky move and he sucks up to the friends. He says, "You guys are all fantastic and this was a great meal, except for Andrei. Don't worry, I won't hold it against Moldova." Oh, thank God for that, Chuck. The G8 will be really happy that there isn't a diplomatic incident between America and Moldova. And outside, Andrei said to Elizabeth, "You're supposed to be my wife and you're not defending me." And Elizabeth said, "All I do in life is to defend you to my family." But she said, "Tonight, your behaviour is indefensible." And Elizabeth finishes off by saying, "If Andrei says my family can't come to the wedding, I'm going to go back to America with them. I'm not having a wedding because they're only here because of this wedding. I just won't do it." And that's where we leave things for this week. There were no winners in this argument, and there was no one without blood on their hands, the truth be told. Andrei was drunk, extremely rude, and really the only reason that these guys are asking loads of questions about him is because he's extremely cagey. He gave them about 20 seconds notice that the wedding was going to occur in Moldova. And why was that? Did he have something to hide? Did he want to ensure that no questions could be asked? And Charlie and Chuck are guilty, if nothing else, of idiocy. Because if they wanted to find out all of these things, they should have done so before a baby, and they should have done so before any wedding. There's no point waiting to get to wedding number 2 in Moldova before you ask pertinent questions. And between you and me, from what I hear, Chuck is no angel with his business dealings. And I might talk about that a bit more in a separate video, I'll see if I have time. And then finally, Elizabeth. She tries to walk a tightrope between her family and her husband, but she's massively ineffective in everything she does and everything she says. She's completely under the thumb of Andrei. He has the power to make her have a sudden wedding in Moldova that her family can't attend. He also has the power to make her change religion. He forced her to ask her dad to pay lock, stock and barrel for the wedding. And she did these things slightly begrudgingly, but yet she still did them. So Andrei knows if I force the issue, she will always do what I say. And by the same token, she's chosen to marry Andrei. So in that sense, she should say to her dad and her brother, "I'm happy with Andrei, I'm happy with his background. There's no need for you to continually question him or to ask his friends or family about him." But again, she fails to do that as well. So guys, what do you think? Let me know in comments down below. Do you think Chuck and Charlie were too forceful, or do you think that Andrei just got massively pissed and that the little scuffle that they had was all his fault? Let me know what you think, and I'll be back very soon with another video. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you very soon. You've been listening to Ebird Online. Ciao for now.